after they were horribly unsuccessful and incorrect doing this during the first pandemic.
Well, that is a perfect mirror for what's going on in the World Health Organization as well, where I don't know how much you've been following it, but there is a pandemic preparedness treaty modification and international health regulations that are hurtling towards approval in May of this year. And what they are is the exact rules that would have allowed the CDC and the WHO and all of those over in Fauci land to win during COVID if they had been in place. So it looks to me like the World Health Organization is setting us up for a rematch in which we cannot do what we succeeded in doing, which is upend their narrative and get higher quality information into discussion. And they're doing this at every level.
And how do they want to do it? What's their plan?
Well, so first of all, the plan keeps morphing. Our ability to even see it is not maintained. They keep changing its name so it's hard to search on. But the overarching picture is the World Health Organization would like the ability to declare a pandemic for any reason whatsoever, including climate change, that in the event of such a pandemic, they want the ability to mandate behavior, including lockdowns. They specifically call out the ability to mandate vaccines. They specifically call out the ability to mandate gene therapy, which is frightening. And what's more, they want the ability to censor in order to make the campaign work, in addition to being able to redistribute medications. So, for example, let's say that they decided that people like you and me were out of hand with ivermectin and they wanted to just mandate that it be sent to some far-flung corner of the globe so it would be a completely academic issue. All of these things are spelled out in detail in this document. And it is written in such a way that it's just boring.
Who's voting on this?
All of the member nations of the UN. Or of the WHO. So this is a absolutely diabolical plan that, I mean, if you sat down and you said, well, what rules would have allowed them to win during COVID rather than be embarrassed by podcasters, this is the set of rules. And it is a complete surrender of national sovereignty. Tedros, in addressing that concern, which tells us that we are beginning to make headway raising people's concern about this, what he said is it's not a compromise of sovereignty. And then his explanation for why it's not is that effectively this is going to be voted on by your elected governments. So his point is you've elected governments that should block this if it's a breach of your sovereignty, and they're not going to do it. So your sovereignty is intact, but that does mean that he's going to have the ability to declare an emergency and then implement all of these draconian measures. It's absolutely terrifying.
Have they suffered any worldwide decrease in respect, or whether or not people value their opinion, or whether or not people value their competency? Or am I in a bubble where I hear the World Health Organization and I go, these people are out of their fucking minds? But does the rest of the world think like that? Like, what is the general perception? What's the temperature in the world when it comes to these things?
I think there are a great many...
why the world's first pandemic treaty may never happen. And this is in Politico. With less than 6 months to go, countries are still not really negotiating, say diplomats. Well, that's good if that's the case. A huge global effort to draw up rules around who does what in the event of another pandemic is floundering as members of COVID-19 fade, raising a real possibility that talks will break down and leave the world as unprepared as it was in 2020. Oh, great. So they're saying it's a bad thing that you don't give up sovereignty. The pandemic treaty, Politico, you fucks. The pandemic treaty currently being negotiated through the World Health Organization aims to prepare for the next global health emergency and prevent a repeat of what South Africa called vaccine apartheid, where countries had vastly unequal access to COVID vaccines. Wow. But wasn't the problem also in Africa that people weren't dying because they weren't getting vaccinated and it wasn't having the same effects? And also the way they report things is very different than us because they don't have a financial incentive to label everything as a COVID death.